Hey folks, welcome back to our channel. My name is Nigel and this is Offgrid Van Life, where we look at van conversions, off-grid power, lithium iron phosphate batteries and everything in between. Basically, we want to help you to convert a van, get on the road and have an epic adventure, but be able to power that van and that adventure with a really good electrical system. So in this video, I'm going to be continuing with the conversion in this van. There's a bunch of stuff that I need to do. Last week I looked at the brackets, so I've got those all dry fitted here. I just need to crack on with actually fitting them now. Just waiting on the right bolts that I'm after for those, but I'm going to be putting those in this week. So I'll update you on that once they're all in. Part of that process is, so I've dry fitted the two back ones, but I need to measure. Once I've got them in, I then need to measure to get the distance right for the next bracket and then a subsequent bracket after that, because I need to get it absolutely precise, because my slats are going to be sitting on top of beams that I'm putting across here and suspending on those brackets. So need to get that right, and then we're going to be starting to insulate and clad all of this out. So need to board up the wheel arches here. I'm going to be having electrical stuff above here, so chargers, all that sort of stuff, bus bars, circuit breakers, all that stuff above this wheel arch here, because the top of wheel arches is pretty much dead space in most vans. And then obviously this van, like many vans, have these things here, these magnetic stoppers, door stoppers that go back. So it's really not that easy to put something and use these corners really effectively, because these are going to hit stuff as they go in. This wheel arch, we're going to put something on the top of it and put a fairly substantial box around it that we can actually put our battery on there. So it needs to be able to hold the battery. The battery weighs about 55 kilograms, so it needs to be a fairly substantial box. The battery is going to sit up there and use up that space up there. We'll probably work something out to put the inverter on the side as well, because we want the inverter as close to the battery as possible. We literally want the shortest wire possible to go from the battery to the inverter, so that we minimize the risk of it getting too hot, the wire getting too hot. So yeah, lots going on this week, lots to do. I'm going to take you through as I do stuff and get stuff done here. So yeah, let's go. Okay, so there's the basic structure. So obviously I'm going to have a board that'll come up pretty much behind that to close off all of that with the insulation behind there, so that's fine. So this upright pillar here is essentially going to be the back of it, and then this platform, which does look very substantial, but bear in mind that I'm putting the battery on there, like I said, so there's going to be a good 50 kilos or so on that, and then we're going to have other stuff on there to utilize the space above it, because that's pretty much dead space. So I wanted these wheel arches to be fairly strong to be able to carry that. All right, so just before we box this in and actually do all of that, I want to insulate this wall. And so as I've mentioned previously, for the most part, most of the insulation in this van, I'm going to be using spray foam. Some of the places, like down this cavity here, I've actually shoved sheep wool, or a derivative of sheep wool insulation, mainly because this cavity might need to be accessed at a future date. So if we need to change lights or anything like that, there's all of the stuff in here that you have to have access to. So obviously spraying spray foam down in here is probably not advisable if we want to be able to change lights and all that sort of stuff. So I've filled that cavity with the sheep wool alternative, and then I'm going to be using spray foam for all of this here. So let's get it. Alright, so while we wait for that side to dry, I'm going to be prepping stuff here. So one of the things that I'm going to be doing in this van is I'm running all of the wires, all of the wiring for all of the electrics inside the walls, obviously hidden. So these pillars, there's actually no way for the wires to get through these pillars. So I'm going to be cutting through a couple of holes just to pass the wires through, because ultimately I want the wires coming out above my head just here. So we're going to have in the cupboard here, we're going to have an electrical control panel where everything's going to go. So I need wires like the cable for the inverter switch, the network cable, which is the signal cable for the solar, so that I can see the charge controller monitor up here in this cupboard. And then we're going to have a switchboard in here for everything, like a main switch basically for lights, USB, fridge, heater, and water pump. And so we're going to run all the wires for that now, and then we're also going to get on with running the wires around the ceiling for the ceiling lights as well. So yeah, let's go. So one of the things that I do is I've got a glossary with a code for all of the wires, as you can see. And so the idea is that every wire that I lay has a number on it. Put that number on the wire, so when I come to actually connect everything up, I can tell what's what. So I've just laid the wire there for the kitchen light. So that's number 22. So I'm going to print out the labels for each end and then put it on there, cut it with plenty of excess so that I have enough to work with later on. So I'm just using one of these guys that I had knocking around from other stuff. Make this one 22 and print. Then I print a second one. We'll take 22 and try and get it as straight as possible. There you go. I can tell later on what it is. Okay folks, so this is where we have got to so far. So cables run, these are for reading lights above the bed here. These cables are for ceiling lights, just did them in a big loop like that. And then we've got wires coming out here, that's for the fridge, and going to a dimmer switch which is going to be on a unit over here. And then we've got cables coming out there, which is for lights under the cabinet here that are above the worktop. And then everything coming out here, which is going to go into a bit of an electrical cupboard, which is going to have master switches for lights, USB, water pump, diesel heater, and the fridge. So everything coming to there. There's also going to be a cutover switch, which is going to cut over between EHU and which is the electrical hookup and the inverter. So that's obviously that where I fitted it in a previous video. That's coming in from the electrical hookup. It's going to go to a 240 volt circuit breaker, and then go from there up to here to a cutover switch, and that's then going to determine whether you're drawing power from the electrical hookup or from the inverter. There's also, and then once it goes back, whichever you're drawing it from, it's then going to go from another circuit breaker and distribute to all of the other components. So haven't got those in, apart from there's one wire there, that big one, which is going to be used for a 240 volt outlet just above the worktop here for the kitchen. Then I'm going to run another 240 volt cable up here, which is going to be the unit. We're going to have a unit here, which is where the induction cooktop is going to go, the stove. So yeah, all of our negative wires coming out here, so they're just going to go to a common negative bus bar there. We've also got positive wires there, which are the feeds to the master switches, so those are all going to come off a fuse block, which is going to be back here. So obviously we're going to have a fuse for lights, USB diesel heater, water pump, and fridge. So we're going to have fuses for all of those. We've got other wires coming out here for the water pump, and then we're going to have a wire going out, a 240 volts 3-core wire, which will be for the inverter. The inverter is going to sit here right next to the battery. We're going to have a shorter distance from the inverter to the battery there. Connected up the pipes there, so we've got the hot and cold for the external shower. We've got the inlet, big 40mm pipe there with a breather, so those are going to be connected to the water tank. So the water tank is going to sit here across there like that. So I'll cut the inlet pipe when the time is right, once we've got that fitted. But yeah, making good progress. Didn't quite get to finishing the boxes over these wheel arches, which is kind of where I started the video. Cut out all the timber, partly because I have ordered a new pocket hole jig, which I want to test and use for making those frames. So that's partly why I haven't done it. I haven't got to insulating these two panels yet because I needed to lay all of the wires. Nearly finished there. I just have two more 240 volt wires to run. So one for the worktop where the stove's going to go, and then one that will connect the inverter to everything. And then the other thing that I need to do is I need to bring in the wires for the solar panels. So they're going to come through this hole here. In a previous video I covered that, fitting the gland on the outside, so that's all fitted and dry and everything. So I'm going to drop the wires through there, but I will probably land up, I'll see, I might install the solar panels now, get them all in the right position, so I get the wire lengths and the cable lengths and stuff correct, so that we can do a really neat job outside, because I don't really want excess solar cable on the roof that I have to wind up in a circle or something like that. So might just install those, drop the wires through, they'll drop down this cavity here, come out here, and then come out there, so that I can then connect them to the charge controller when I get that next week. Obviously you connect the charge controller to the battery first before you connect your solar panels. All of the wires are labeled, yeah, so I have a glossary with all of the codes, and so I know what wires what. The only thing I didn't label is all of the negative wires. All the black wires, I've just run them where they need to go, and just they're all going to a common bus bar, so I'm not too worried about that. And there we go, folks. I'm going to call it there for this week and this video. Reasonable progress in the van. A lot more, looks like we've made more progress. All of the stuff we've done up until now has been preparation and sort of bits and pieces and stuff, but this week I feel like we've really gone leaps and bounds ahead in terms of getting this done. Pretty happy with how this installation is looking here. It's pretty solid, stuck very well to the wall. That will offer some sound deadening, and it's also a pretty effective vapor barrier. So this stuff is waterproof. So I'm pretty happy with how that has turned out. I need to trim a few things here and there, just where it's gone over, but it'll be pretty straightforward to sort that out. Yeah, and so I'm pretty excited with how that's looking there. Pretty much all of the wiring done, bar a couple of small things, mainly around the inverter. And so the main reason why I haven't rounded that off completely and got it out the way is that I need to get more wire. So the 3-core 240 volt wire that I have is only 0.75 millimeters in cross section. So for the current that we're going to be carrying for the worktop, we're going to need probably a minimum of 1.5 mil squared cross section. So I'm probably going to land up just putting 2.5 mil, just have a bit of a safety net. I like going a little bit over anyway. I'm going to have a circuit breaker to protect it anyway, but all of the other wiring that I've put in for 240 volt is all 2.5 mil squared, so probably do something similar. But yeah, pretty happy with how everything else is going, looking pretty good. Only things that I need to run is a wire that's going to go from the inverter to a cutover switch for switching between EHU and the inverter, switch that I'm going to put here with the electrical stuff that will run around the front to where the stove is going to go, or the cooktop. Those two things, and then I need to run the cables for the solar panel. So the solar panels, I may actually land up just fitting them so that I can run the cables as they're going to be. Just because then I can get the lengths right and make it really neat and look really good. So I might fit the solar panels next week. I'll see how we go with that and make a decision. But yeah, on the whole, pretty happy with how it's turning out. Hopefully you've enjoyed the video and following along with stuff here. As always, we'll keep you guys posted. We're going to be putting out a battery or another subject video on Wednesdays. And that'll be something like battery or lithium iron phosphate battery build, or some how-tos around batteries and installs and stuff like that. And then obviously Sundays is going to be updates on the progress of this van and taking you guys along on that. So hope you're enjoying these videos. I'd love to have feedback in the comments below. Let us know what you think, and if you have any suggestions or questions or anything like that. And otherwise, we'll see you guys in the next video. Cheers. Thanks for watching.